Everything is shutting down, but it's the perfect opportunity to binge watch a good TV show. So where to start? Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
All right, so before I get into this, let me just give you a quick reminder. You can listen to the podcast anywhere, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, the iHeartRadio app. Just type in Super Dario World. You'll find it right there. Also, subscribe. I've realized that I haven't really mentioned that. Any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at Super Dario World. Okay, let me just clarify one thing real quick. I have not finished watching Castlevania 3 today. Well, the season 3, so I'll probably won't do a review until tomorrow. Sorry, I tried. A lot of episodes. Day caught up with me, and I needed to start recording this thing. So you can look forward to that tomorrow. Will I do something else today? I'll try. But it's looking rough. There's not enough hours in the day. Anyway, so I had somebody ask me, like, Dario, you watch a lot of TV shows. Which TV shows would you recommend for me to binge watch since I can't fucking do anything for a really long time? And I thought about it long and hard, and I figured, you know what? First off, I need to put some rules to this category. Because first off, I love the category, but I need to put some rules to it. And a few rules that I gave myself for this is, okay, 1, the show has to be done. It has to be officially finished. And 2, it has to end on a high note or at least be consistently good, right? Because there's certain shows, for example, the Game of Thrones out there that start off with a bang and then just the ending would just totally ruin not your life, but it would really piss you off. I mean, honestly, binge watch Game of Thrones. It's really, first season's great. It's all kind of downhill from there, and it's better for me if you watch it because the more people binge watch it, they'll realize, oh yeah, when you binge watch the show, it doesn't really make much sense because now we can remember things that happened quite recently, and so point is, don't watch. Fine. Watch Game of Thrones if you want. Whatever. It'll probably make my reread of Game of Thrones whenever I finish editing it out a little bit better. Also, like the Dexters of the world. Dexter started off with a bang. After season 5, all downhill, and the ending was disgustingly bad. Now, there's shows like the True Bloods of the world that started way up and then kind of went downhill and then kind of saved it at the end. But is that enough for it? I don't think so. So let's just go into the shows that, like I said, consistently good. Or also, you know what? If you want to kill like a buttload of time, and I mean a buttload of time, and here I don't see where this is going to end. I don't think it'll go all the way into May. Because supposedly with May, warmer weather, that usually kills off the flu. Also, the economy can't hold up. So there's a point where it's like, all right, either I'm going to die because I don't have any money and I can't pay for anything, or I'm going to die of this thing. And there's a point where you're like, just, fuck it, I'll risk it. So there's a breaking point there economically. I think at worst, it's May. I think it's going to be the middle of April. Also, it looks like a vaccine is already being worked on. Like, human trial started today, which is insane. But that's what happens when you get rid of a lot of red tape. But we'll see. I'm being optimistic here. Hopefully you are as well. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to kill like a buttload of time, watch the CW's Arrowverse. And I'm talking the TV show Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, unfortunately, and Black Lightning too, and even Batwoman, because that'll kill a whole buttload of time. And by whole buttload of time, I mean a whole buttload of time. I mean, there's shows that are just so long. Well, first off, it's not just that one show's long; it's that it's a whole bunch of shows and they're connected, and it's good enough that it'll keep you entertained. So it'll kill a whole buttload of time. Also, I mean, the longest running comedy out there, I think, is Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So I always recommend that. However, it's not finished. South Park has been going on forever. Watch that. So if you want to kill like a buttload of time and not finish shows, go with those. All right, fine. Anything from the Arrowverse, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and South Park, which are two probably the smartest comedies out there. And the darkest. So those things aren't finished. And if you have a lot of time to kill. But right now we're focusing on things that have been finished. So let's start off with the genre. Something that's pretty simple, a drama. Who doesn't like a good drama, right? Who doesn't like a good drama? And again, Grey's Anatomy does not count. Does not count. Also, I just found out that they ruined one of the best characters ever. I've been following that show for over a decade, and the best character arc they just completely destroyed. So I'm pissed off, and I'm not gonna finish it. I'm probably not gonna finish it. Anyway, I don't even know why I went on that rant. I think it's because I just found out. Anyway, so if you want a good drama, right? And I'm talking any type of drama, the show that I recommend the most is by far AMC's Mad Men. Now, why Mad Men? Mad Men is a very subtly interesting show. It's based off of basically advertising. It's an advertising agency advertising men in the 50s, 60s. I believe it's the 60s. Yeah, 60s. And so it's very interesting, first off, to see how that works, how they're trying to sell stuff. But the things that happen in that show are very realistic. They have the feet on the ground. It's just subtly more interesting than real life. The characters are the main character is a little bit larger than life, but the rest of them are just subtly more interesting. So it's really it's a really interesting experience to watch a show that's not trying hard at all. It's just that the situation and the things that happen in that world are very interesting. They, like I said, doesn't try hard at all. It's very subtle. Like, it's a very, very subtle show. So if you're looking for something, that's actually going to keep you there and you're going to be paying attention, it's great. They also tried out a whole bunch of cinematic things. Like, I guess, I don't want to give you an example, but the point is, one of the greatest main characters in drama, Don Draper, is in there. It was actually the beginning of the career of, what the hell is this dude's name? I can't believe I forgot Don Draper's name. Who the hell plays Don Draper? John Hamm. Oh, that was going to drive me nuts. Anyway, so that's where he started out. It's a great show. Peggy Olson, who was played by, I believe, Elizabeth something. I don't know. I'm terrible with names. That is probably my weakest link here. Elizabeth Moss. There you go. Who's now a part of, The Handmaid's Tale. She's the main character there. So that's where her career started. Very, very, like I said, subtly interesting show. It keeps you there. Like, the things that happen, not that wild, but super interesting. Especially if you're into selling stuff, if you're into advertising, if you're into that whole world. So, there you go. Also, like the cultural differences between New York in the 60s and New York now. Very, very interesting show. Highly recommended. That's like a pure drama right there. Well, a period drama, I guess, but pure drama. Next, sticking kind of with the drama vibe, I'm going to go into the crime drama world. Crime drama. Now, this is not investigative drama. I mean crime drama. There's honestly 3 names here that matter. 3. We got Breaking Bad, we got The Wire, and we have The Sopranos. Now, The Sopranos is the big daddy of crime dramas, right? That's the classic. That's the original. It's probably the most famous one and one of the greatest shows of all. Like, all these 3 are considered to be among the greatest shows of all time. Pretty much any single movie list, you'll see these 3 shows. However, I think that the most popular one out of those 3 and the most culturally relevant is Breaking Bad. Now, The Wire is, well, a lot of people said Breaking Bad is the best show they've ever seen since The Wire. And a lot of people argue that The Wire might be the best, at least in that genre type of TV show they've ever seen. It is really well done. It's about the crime in Baltimore. It shows you a lot of different, how it was really fucked up. Well, it still is really fucked up. Sopranos, it's more Jersey, like the whole family vibe. So the reason why I think that Breaking Bad is the most popular, by the way, Breaking Bad is the story of a dad who gets cancer, and so he's a chemist. He's a chemistry teacher in high school, so he decides to sell meth in order to pay for his treatment. Is because I think that's the most relatable one. Like, honestly, you could actually see yourself getting in a position where you're so desperate and you just want to take care of your family, and you just and so you do something that's completely insane and wild. And so Breaking Bad, I believe it's the most relatable. Also, it's the easiest to follow because The Sopranos has a lot of characters. The Wire has a lot of characters. Breaking Bad is basically the story of 2 dudes, Walter White, Jesse Pinkman. So I would recommend Breaking Bad. And again, if you still have time, go with the other 2 because, again, they're considered to be among the greatest shows of all time. But I have to pick one. If I have to pick just one to watch, I will probably just sit down and enjoy the adventure of Walter White. All right, so that's the drama, right? Let's move into something a little bit more fun, okay? how about we talk a little bit about animated shows? And I'm including anime here. There's really one choice for me. Well, I mean, it's hard because, I mean, Dragon Ball Z, if you're talking anime, it's probably, you have a lot of episodes. One Piece, you have episodes forever. Honestly, the quarantine could last all year and you have episodes still to watch. But if we're talking of the best animated show for you to binge watch that's finished, probably, and this show is in the conversation for maybe the greatest animated show of all time, I would have to go with Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was a Nickelodeon show, by the way. The sequel, The Legend of Korra, is good, but not as great. This is the story of Aang, the last Airbender, and who's also the Avatar. What does any of that mean? Basically, it's a fantasy world where humans can, and depending on what nation they're born from, they have the skill to manipulate one of the four elements. So they can be a firebender, waterbender, airbender, and it's not stone, earthbender. And so it's kind of the story of the Avatar is a special being that has the power to control all four. So Aang is born as the Avatar, and he kind of doesn't want that responsibility, so he kind of accidentally disappears from the world for about 100 years, and the world kind of descends into chaos because the Fire Nation decides to invade everybody else. That's kind of what that show is about, and it is great. It is, first off, hysterical. Second off, tragic. It is very, very well handled. The pacing is really good. Ignore the movie. Ignore the movie The Last Airbender. That movie was terrible. And I mean horribly, disgustingly bad. I want to throw up thinking about it. The show is extremely, extremely well made from beginning to end. It makes perfect sense. It's the characters, you really care about them. It's one of the better character story arcs in terms of villain that's out there. There's a great redemption story for certain characters. Highly, highly recommended. If you want to watch an animated show, if you want something to your kids who are maybe a little bit older, I highly, highly recommend Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, sticking kind of in the fantasy realm, you'd probably think like, oh, well, maybe here's where you throw in Game of Thrones or True Blood or stuff like that. No. I'll keep with the fantasy, but not going to be either of those two. Like I said, if you want to watch them, watch them. I don't care. True Blood was kind of fun for a minute, but then, like I said, it trails off. I was okay with the ending, but no. I'm actually going to go a little bit further old school, and I'm going to recommend Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. This is a twofer. You can't watch one without the other. Actually, you can, because both shows are independent, and I actually started watching Angel before that, but they're enhanced. The experience is enhanced with both of them. What does that mean? So Buffy the Vampire Slayer, honestly, okay, I was about to say something crazy, but definitely among the best female characters in TV history, all right? Her story arc is amazing. Like, honestly, like, I have no idea why she's not a bigger feminist icon, but she should be. Buffy is a badass. And that show is basically about what the title of the show is, the girl Buffy, and she's a vampire slayer. Now, this is a world where once in a generation, there's a woman who is a slayer. So basically, the type of vampires here's how it works. If a vampire kills you and then you drink its blood, then basically a demon from hell comes over and takes over your body. And so that's basically your soul's out of it, but your body, it becomes a vampire. You don't become a vampire because it's a demon that took over. That's that type of vampire. Okay? And so Buffy is a slayer, and she lives in a town called Sunnyvale, that happens to be sitting on top of a Hellmouth, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it's called, Hellmouth. So shenanigans ensue. She has her gang of people helping her out, called the Scooby Squad. Great, great, great adventure. Now Buffy has a season that is really bad. There's one season right there in the middle that's like a major dip. Afterwards, it picks itself up. So it starts off really good. There's a dip, and then it picks itself back up. It is like I said, probably is Buffy the greatest female female character lead in TV history? I'll have to think about that one. I may make a list one day, but she's definitely in the conversation. Now, Angel, on the other hand, it's a spinoff of the TV show Buffy, and it's the story of a vampire, or the vampire with a soul. Now, if you paid attention to what I told you before, it's human body leaves gets killed, goes to heaven or hell or whatever, and a demon takes over the body. Now, Angel, back in the day, his name was Angelus, and he was like the worst vampire ever. And so gypsies cursed him with having to recover his soul and binding it to his body. So it's the human soul still in control of the body, but still with a demon in there that's kind of imprisoned. But this human soul still has all the memories from the things that happened when he was a vampire. The vampire is still kind of trapped there, and he's like, you stupid asshole, you should be doing evil stuff. It's Angel might be the most tragic character in TV history. Now, if you noticed, I hesitated talking about Buffy as maybe the best like female character out there. I have very, very little hesitation saying that Angel's story is probably the most tragic. In fact, you know what? That one I can make it a whole fucking podcast to defend that argument. I'll just give you maybe a couple weeks to watch the show. Highly, highly recommend it. Together, they're great. They're different in its own way. Buffy is a show about a girl becoming like the woman she's meant to be. Angel is a show. It's not in Sunnydale. He goes to LA, the city of angels, and he basically fights demons there. Right? He has his own different type of battle. And Angel is a story about living in a world with demons. So it's very different. One's a show about becoming. The other is kind of a show about learning to live with or accepting or finding the good amongst the bad. Very different type of stories. Both great on their own end. And Joss Whedon, who created the TV shows, by the way, Joss Whedon, if you don't know him from that, he directed the Avengers movies, the first two. Anyway, so Joss Whedon, he gave himself a rule when writing the TV show Angel. And the rule was, whenever Angel wins anything, he must lose something of equal or greater value, which is the biggest and most important rule maybe I've ever heard in writing anything. It makes stories so much better. And like I said, Angel probably the most tragic character in film history or in TV history. Both of them. You know what? Fiction. Whatever. Highly recommend those two. And now on a lighter note, let's switch it up a bit. Maybe it's like too many dark shows, Dario. Too much sadness and stuff like that. I need something, that's a little bit more fun. Well, how about we venture into the world of the teen drama? Now, in the teen drama, there's a lot to go through. There's a lot, but I'm going to pick two of my favorites. It's going to be, first off, The OC. The OC. First, I need to say this. I love a good teen drama, okay? I love Riverdale, love 90210, love all that stuff, but I love a good teen drama. So, The OC, I think, is actually the first teen drama that I loved, that I fell in love with. Like, first episode, I just loved it. Welcome to The OC, bitch! Love that show. It's the story of Ryan Atwood, a kid from Chino, California, who's from a very, very bad neighborhood, very bad family, that ends up living in one of the richest that ends up being taken in by a family in one of the richest counties in the U.S. Shenanigans ensue, let's say, and the main characters there, they're dynamic, their interactions. It was so great. The character was so great, except for one that a lot of people argue that the season, the one of that when a certain character leaves is the worst, but I loved it. To me, the last season was the best one because one particular character was out of there, and it just became a lot more fun. It is extremely witty. It is extremely well written. There's a whole bunch of bands that showed up there to play. The Killers show up on a random episode and have a concert. It is a great, easy to watch TV show. I highly recommend it. Now, on another note, another TV show that I highly recommend, teen drama still, we're talking about maybe one of the best ever. One of the most interesting love triangles out there, Dawson's Creek. So, why I recommend this show? It's a classic for a reason. I've actually been rewatching it recently. It is really good. It's very silly. It's everything 90s, but it is so stupidly funny. Something to stress you out, and you actually get to. There's something about going back to watching an old show and being like, man, teenagers are stupid, man. Like, why the fuck would you do? Why would you leave a teenager in charge of a business, or why would you let them be in charge of something like political? it's one of the first shows that's actually started doing that, and it's really stupid but really well made. Really, the thing here, it's the characters are very interesting. You actually care about the characters, and you care about their development. You care about the story. Highly recommend it. Again, probably one of the dumbest ones out there, but really well made. Highly recommend it. That's the teen drama category. And so to close things out, let's go with probably my favorite genre out there, sci-fi. Now there's only three titles out there that actually mean anything to me. And also, I mean, if you want to watch Star Trek or whatever, you can do it. But I'm gonna stick something with something that I care about. I've never been a Trekkie guy. So first off, easy one right off the gate. In fact, I don't even want to recommend this for binge watching because it's so short. But whatever. Firefly, also created by Joss Whedon, who I just talked about, who created Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. It's a sci-fi western. Unfortunately, it only lasted one season, and it's a fucking disgrace. It's every single time I rewatch it, I get pissed off that they canceled it because it makes no sense. Unfortunately, it came up in a time when sci-fi wasn't what sci-fi is right now, and it got a terrible time slot, and it was canceled before it even actually got a chance to take off. Also, for some odd reason, the first episode to air was the third episode instead of the actual pilot. So it was very confusing for the audiences back then. However, audiences complained so fucking much and fans begged for the show to come back so much that they actually relented and they released a movie called Serenity. And Serenity kind of tries to wrap up the story. There's also comic books that continue the story, but it wraps it up enough. However, like I said, it's only one season. It's very short, but it's a great adventure. The only issue with it is that you will get pissed off that they did not make it longer. It's really infuriating. So, all right, that one, let's get that out of the way. Let's talk about the other two that actually would take up more of your time. First off, Battlestar Galactica. If you've never heard of Battlestar Galactica, I'm talking about the recent one, not the old school one from like the 70s. I'm talking about the most recent one that came out in the early 2000s. Holy shit, one of my favorite sci-fi TV shows of all time. And let me just give you the premise so that you understand what this is about. So, this is a futuristic TV show where humanity has expanded to a whole bunch of different planets. Basically, they've named planets based on the constellation. Like there's Pycon, there's Tauron, and all that stuff. And they created a advanced civilization of... They created a really advanced AI called Cylons. Cylons then decided, you know what? Fuck these humans. Why are we listening to them? And actually, no, that's not how that happened. I'm sorry. Made a mistake. Humanity decided, you know what? These Cylons, they could actually, they're really powerful and they're really strong and they're really smart and they could kind of take over things. So we should probably get rid of them. And so Cylons said, fuck these humans. We're out of here. And so they started what was known as the Human Cylon War. And it ended with Cylons basically saying, all right, well, humanity and Cylons being like, all right, deal. This is their deal. So you get this part of space from here on it. You just go out there and do whatever you want, and humanity will stay here. Now, the reason why they did this is because humanity knew that they could not chase down the Cylons indefinitely because, I mean, Cylons they're robots. They could just live forever. And so chasing them would probably be like an impossible task. And Cylons, on the other hand, were like, well, these dudes are kicking our ass right now, so we probably, this is a bad idea. So they came up with a truce. And they just, by the way, none of this is actually a spoiler, by the way. This is just so that you get the premise of the very first episode. So they decided, all right, this is a place and we're going to meet up once a year on this particular spot and see to make sure that the things are okay. Now, on one particular year, the Cylons show up. The Cylons never show up, by the way. For like 50 years, they never showed up. And so for one day, on one particular year, they show up and they show up with a human. And so everybody's kind of completely confused and thrown off. And that it turns out that the Cylons attack that base and destroy it. And it turns out that that human is actually a Cylon. So basically, imagine a Terminator, but a Terminator that's even harder to just like down to the bones. They look like humans. So it's impossible to actually distinguish them from, almost impossible to distinguish them from human. So Cylons at that point had unleashed several of them. They had infiltrated deep areas of the military, deep areas of the government, and they launched a coordinated attack, basically turned all the human ships on themselves, exploded all the nukes. 99% of humanity gets killed in a day. So where does Battlestar Galactica come in? Battlestar Galactica is actually a ship that was part of of the original Cylon War, the original human Cylon War, and it was supposed to be retired. It's an analog ship basically. So, digital ships can be hacked. And so for the human Cylon Wars, they used analog ships to make sure that they could not be hacked and stuff. And this ship was about to be retired. And the day that it was supposed to be retired, that's when it was supposed to be turned into a museum. That's when the Cylons attack. So the very few people that they just throw them in the ship and just get the fuck out of there. And that's how the show begins, with the last remnants of humanity running through space, being chased by the relentless and evil Cylons who may or may not have infiltrated their ship. It is a phenomenal TV show. Again, there's few seasons that were dip, and some people hate the ending. I love the ending. I thought it was perfect. There's always this mystery there of like, who is it? Could it be this person? Could it be not? Who's going to betray you? What the fuck is happening? I'm not sure. The situation is dire. It's dire. I love it. There's also a board game based off of this show that's phenomenal. I highly recommend it. So, if you have the chance, again, highly recommended, Battlestar Galactica. And finally, to round this list out, my last recommendation for things you can binge watch while you're locked down at home, I'm going to recommend the TV show Fringe. Now, this was created by none other than J.J. Abrams. This is another J.J. Abrams baby, and how can I explain Fringe? I'll just let the show explain itself, because it's very confusing, and fringe science, I guess it's a difficult concept for me to explain. But I'll give you the description of the show. An FBI agent is forced to work with an institutionalized scientist and his son in order to rationalize a brewing storm of unexplained phenomena. I guess that's fair enough. This is kind of like an investigation show, but the things that are happening are really weird. And again, but it says there, an FBI agent needs the help of a crazy scientist to kind of make sense of all this stuff. And the only way to keep control of the crazy scientist is with the son, who's also kind of a shady character in his own right. The TV show is extremely, extremely complicated up to a certain point, but at the end it makes sense. Like at the end it was a little bit rushed. You could tell that they rushed the end, but it made sense. And I'll tell you why I'm putting the show on. Actually, I'll tell you why I started watching the TV show Fringe. And if you've noticed, from anything that I've ever said in my podcast, I appreciate consistency. Consistency is the most important thing to me in a story. I need things to make sense. So I remember once I was watching an episode of Parks and Recreation. By the way, if you want to watch a comedy, Parks and Rec is actually pretty great. Is it as good as The Office? It's very different. Honestly, Parks and Rec, it's good. I'm not a big Amy Poehler fan, but after watching that, I actually started liking her. So, the Parks and Rec. Anyway, so there's a character in Parks and Rec who's a big geek, and I mean a major geek, and he loses his job, and at one point he's going nuts. He doesn't know what the hell to do with his life, and so he creates his own board game, and he's talking with his girlfriend. He says, "Look, you know what? I remember. I'm not going to be able to say it verbatim, but I think this is basically the gist of what he said. Like, so I went back to watch the first season of Fringe just to make sure that it was, as consistent as I thought, now that it's over. And just as I expected, it was perfect. It was perfect. And to me, that was like, interesting. Let's see what this is about. Again, the show's wild. There's a lot of really crazy stuff that happens into it, so it's very easy for the plot to get lost somewhere or for there to be inconsistencies. So far, and like I said, I didn't go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but I noticed these things pretty quickly. In the entire show, again, a wild and crazy sci-fi show, I only noticed one inconsistency, and you could argue that it wasn't really an inconsistency. I won't get into which one it was, but it's a show that from the way it closes, from the way it beginning, and from the way it starts, it was kind of, you could tell it was planned. Or if they made it out on the fly, they're fucking geniuses because they made it out in a beautiful way. So, again, great sci-fi show. Probably, I mentioned my 3 favorite sci-fi shows right there: Battlestar Galactica, Fringe, and Firefly. So you got more than enough there. So just to recap this whole thing, if we're talking about something that, if you're going for a drama, go for Mad Men. If you're going for a crime drama, Breaking Bad. If you're going for an animated TV show, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Sci-fi, I give you Battlestar Galactica, Fringe, Firefly. Fantasy, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or Angel, or both. Actually, both. You have to watch them both. And finally, the teen drama, Dawson's Creek, and The OC. Also, I guess I threw in the comedy there, Parks and Rec. So that's it. That should keep you more than busy, and I think you'll be happy with the results. I would, honestly, I would not mind to rewatch all of these, especially considering that I'm kind of already rewatching some of them. There you go. That's my personal recommendation of shows that I would rewatch or I would binge watch in this situation. Actually, you know what, I might, because there's not much to do. Anyway, as always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at SuperDario_World. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.